10 years ago, my brother took my fiancée and watched my life collapse while everyone else looked away. I disappeared, rebuilt myself quietly, and never corrected the lies. When I finally walked into our family reunion, he laughed and asked if I was still alone. I didn't defend myself. I made one calm call, and when the doors opened minutes later, the room froze, faces drained, and nothing would ever be the same again. Before I go any further, stay with me for this. Stories like this don't travel far unless someone's listening. If you're here right now, reading this, just pause for a second and let me know in your own way, wherever you are. It matters more than you think. I hadn't returned to Stonefall Heights in a decade. Not since the night I left with a single suitcase and a silence so loud it rang in my ears for years. The town hadn't changed. Same snow-dusted streets. Same expensive calm. Same people pretending nothing ugly ever happened behind closed doors. The Evermont Lodge glowed against the winter night like it always had, warm lights, polished wood, the smell of money and memory. Inside, 50 relatives gathered for the so-called family reunion. Laughter floated too easily. Glasses clinked. Old grudges hid behind polite smiles. I stepped in slowly, every muscle tight. Some people recognized me immediately. Others needed a second look, like I was a ghost they weren't sure was real. I felt the whispers before I heard them. That's him. He came back? I thought he disappeared for good. I kept my head up and my expression neutral. 10 years teaches you how to carry pain without showing it. Then I saw him. My brother, Adrian Vale. Same confident posture. Same perfectly measured smile. Same way of standing like the room belonged to him. He wore success like armor, but I noticed what no one else did, the tension in his jaw, the restless glances at his phone, the way his confidence wavered when he thought no one was watching. Fear always leaks eventually. Our parents stood beside him, proud and polished. My mother's smile froze when she saw me. My father gave a stiff nod, like I was a distant acquaintance instead of the son he once told to step aside gracefully. Adrian noticed me seconds later. His eyes lit up, not with surprise, but with satisfaction. He raised his glass slightly and let his voice carry across the room. 10 years, he said, smiling. And still alone? A few people laughed. The uncomfortable kind. The kind that tries to disguise cruelty as humor. I didn't respond. Instead, I reached into my pocket, unlocked my phone, and spoke softly into it. Are you close yet, love? No one heard the answer. But they all noticed the shift. I took a seat away from the main table, near the edge of the room, where shadows softened the noise. From there, I watched Adrian perform, telling stories, exaggerating success, soaking in admiration like oxygen. But every few minutes, his phone buzzed. And every time, his smile tightened. That's when the murmurs began near the entrance. Low at first. Whose car is that? That's not local. I turned just as headlights sliced through the falling snow outside the lodge. A sleek black vehicle rolled to a stop at the front steps, engine humming like a held breath. The room quieted. Adrian followed the movement instinctively. The moment his eyes landed on the car, his face drained of color. The tinted window lowered, slow, deliberate, only halfway. That was enough. Adrian stumbled backward. His glass slipped from his hand and shattered against the floor. No, he whispered. It can't be. The entire room fell silent. And in that moment, I knew, before a single word was spoken, that the life he stole from me 10 years ago was finally coming back to collect its debt. I sat there, calm on the outside, while memories surged hard and fast beneath my skin. 10 years ago, I believed in fair endings. I was 20. Naive. Hopeful. Engaged to Alara Whitmore, a woman who seemed untouchable, graceful, brilliant, born into a world of influence and wealth. She chose me, or so I believed. Our wedding was planned at Northcrest Manor, surrounded by pines and stone and promises that felt permanent. I built that future with my own hands. Every detail. Every plan. I thought love was something you earned by being steady, loyal, reliable. 3 days before the wedding, she stopped answering my calls. Cancelled appointments. Avoided me. When I finally saw her, her eyes didn't meet mine. I told myself it was stress. I told myself lies are easier when the truth would destroy you. The morning everything ended, she asked me to meet her at a guest house behind her family's estate. I walked in smiling. I walked out hollow. She stood there crying. My brother stood beside her, rumpled shirt, smug eyes, already certain of victory. We're together, he said. She's marrying me. I waited for her to deny it. She didn't. You're safe, she whispered. Too safe. I need more. Then came the lie that sealed my fate. Adrian told her I was unfaithful. Fabricated messages. Doctored proof. Lies wrapped in confidence. She believed him. And when the truth reached our family, no one asked for my side. Not one question. Not one pause. They chose him. That night, standing alone in the snow, I understood something that would shape the rest of my life. I had never truly belonged. So I left. And I rebuilt myself from nothing. What my family never understood, what Adrian never imagined, was that while they erased me, I was becoming someone they'd one day have to face. And now, 10 years later, with that black car waiting outside and the past stepping back into the room, that day had finally arrived. The door opened. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just enough to let cold air slide into the lodge like a warning. She stepped inside as if the room already belonged to her. Tall. Composed. Wrapped in a black coat that caught the chandelier light like polished glass. Her presence didn't demand attention, it commanded it. Conversations died where they stood. Even the staff froze mid-step. I stood. Not to impress anyone. Not to perform. It was instinct. She crossed the room without hesitation, heels striking the floor with steady purpose. Each step tightened the silence until it felt like pressure against the ribs. She didn't look around. She didn't need to. Her eyes found mine immediately. You weren't kidding about the snow, she said calmly, stopping in front of me. Traffic was terrible. Adrian's chair scraped violently against the floor as he stood. Why are you here? He demanded, his voice cracking in a way I'd never heard before. She turned slowly, assessing him the way surgeons assess problems before deciding where to cut. That's an interesting question, she replied. But not the one you should be asking. I placed a hand lightly at the small of her back, not for show, not for control. Just grounding. A reminder to myself that this was real. I faced the room. For those who don't know, I said evenly, this is Lena Arkwright. Murmurs rippled. Some people recognized the name immediately. Others needed a second. She continued for me. I'm the CEO of Arkwright Strategic Holdings, she said. And I'm also his wife. The word hit the room like a dropped plate. My mother gasped. My father stiffened. Several relatives exchanged stunned looks. Adrian looked like the floor had vanished beneath him. Wife, someone whispered. Yes, Lena said calmly. 10 years. Adrian shook his head, laughing once, high, broken. No. That's impossible. You, his voice dropped. You were supposed to be mine. Lena's eyes sharpened. I was never yours, she said. I was your mistake. The silence turned heavy. I hadn't planned on saying more. But the truth has weight, and once it starts moving, it doesn't stop easily. I didn't come back for closure, I said. I didn't come back to relive anything. I came back because business required it. I nodded slightly toward Lena. And because the company everyone here treats like a family crown jewel is collapsing. My father stepped forward, his face flushed. That's absurd. Our company is insolvent, Lena finished. And has been for a while. She gestured subtly, and a man in a tailored suit stepped forward, placing a folder on the main table. Then another. And another. Financial statements. Audit reports. Transaction trails. Funds were redirected, Lena continued. Debts concealed. Assets misrepresented. Her gaze locked on Adrian. And large sums funneled into accounts tied directly to you. Adrian's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. You don't know what you're talking about. I stepped closer. I found the discrepancies, I said quietly. I filed the report. That was when the room truly shifted. Faces turned. Whispers exploded. People who'd ignored me for years now stared as if seeing me for the first time. You, my mother whispered. Yes, I said. Me. Adrian lunged for the table. You planned this, he snarled. This is revenge. I smiled, not wide, not cruel. No, I said. This is accountability. Lena opened the folder and slid a page forward. These transactions, she said, also trace back to a trust tied to Alara Whitmore. That name sliced through the room. She's involved, someone asked. She was, Lena said carefully. Until she realized her name was being used to secure loans she never approved. My chest tightened, not with pain, but with something quieter. Final. She left, a woman near the back said shakily. She tried to stop it. Adrian turned on her. You were told to stay out of this. My father slammed his hand on the table. Enough, he barked. This family will not be torn apart over lies? I interrupted. The room went still again. You chose them once, I continued. You don't get to choose silence now. Adrian sagged. For the first time, the man who stole my future looked small. I changed the messages, he muttered. Every sound in the room vanished. I took his phone, Adrian said, voice shaking. Rewrote them. Made it look real. She believed me. My mother covered her mouth. Why? I asked. He laughed weakly. Because you were winning. Because everyone started talking about you. Because I couldn't stand it. That confession didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It just closed something. Lena stepped beside me. You have 6 weeks, she told Adrian. Cooperate fully or charges will follow. She turned to my parents. This acquisition is final. No threats. No raised voice. Just truth. I looked around the room one last time. I didn't come back to take anything, I said. I came back to stop carrying it. Then I took Lena's hand. We walked out together as snow began to fall harder, covering the steps, the cars, the past. And behind us, the silence finally belonged to someone else. We didn't go back inside the lodge. There was nothing left in that room for me, only echoes of a version of myself that no longer existed. Lena and I stepped into the waiting car, the door closing softly behind us, muting the chaos we left behind. Snow brushed against the windows in thick, slow spirals, like the world was deliberately erasing our footprints. Only when the car pulled away did I finally exhale. Lena turned toward me, studying my face with that same precision she used in boardrooms and crises. Not concern. Not pity. Awareness. You okay? She asked. I nodded, but the truth sat heavier than a yes. I didn't expect it to feel quiet, I said. She gave a small, knowing smile. Closure usually does. Back at the hotel, sleep didn't come easily. Not because of anger, because of memories finally settling into their proper place. Things I'd buried under years of work, distance, and silence had surfaced, been named, and then, lost their power. By morning, Aurora Ridge woke up buzzing. Phones rang. Emails stacked. Articles went live before breakfast. Hale Dynasty under investigation. Corporate fraud rocks legacy firm. CEO ousted as acquisition finalized. My name appeared in a few of them, never the headline, but always there, like a footnote that suddenly mattered. My parents didn't call. Adrian did. Over and over. I let it ring. Instead, I met Lena downstairs for coffee. She was already on her tablet, scrolling through reports, calm as ever. They're cooperating, she said without looking up. Mostly because they have no choice. And him? I asked. She paused. He's trying to bargain. Offering partial admissions. Shifting blame. I almost laughed. Of course. She met my eyes then. Are you prepared for what comes next? I knew what she meant. The investigation wouldn't stop at the company. It would crawl backward through years of transactions, decisions, cover-ups. People who'd stayed silent would suddenly remember details. People who'd benefited would claim ignorance. And my family name, what was left of it, would be stripped bare. I said. I've been ready for 10 years. I just didn't know it. By noon, the call finally came, from my mother. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. Jackson, we need to talk. I closed my eyes. We already did, I said calmly. No, she insisted. Not like this. Please. Just once more. I hesitated. Not because I owed her, but because I no longer feared the conversation. Meet me at the house, I said. 1 hour. The house looked the same. Too clean. Too orderly. Like a place where emotions had always been edited out for presentation. My father sat at the dining table, hands folded. My mother hovered near the window. Adrian wasn't there. Good. We didn't know, my father began immediately. I raised a hand. Stop. They froze. This isn't a trial, I said. I'm not here for explanations or apologies that arrive 10 years too late. My mother's eyes filled with tears. We made mistakes. Yes, I said. You did. Silence stretched. You believed him without question, I continued. You watched me lose everything and told me to be graceful about it. You didn't just choose him. You erased me. My father looked down. I thought you were stronger, he said quietly. I nodded once. I was. That's why you thought I'd survive it. My mother stepped forward. Can we fix this? I shook my head gently. No. But you can stop breaking it. I slid a document onto the table. It's a statement, I said. You can sign it. Acknowledge what you knew. What you ignored. It won't save Adrian. But it will stop the lies from living on. My father stared at the paper for a long time. Then he signed. My mother followed, hands trembling. When I left, I didn't feel triumph. I felt lighter. That afternoon, Lena and I flew back to the city. The storm stayed behind us. Weeks passed. The investigation widened. More names surfaced. Board members resigned. Lawsuits followed. Adrian's accounts were frozen. His public image collapsed faster than I expected. Turns out arrogance doesn't age well under scrutiny. One night, I found Lena on the balcony, city lights reflecting in her eyes. You never told me, she said softly. Told you what? That you still loved her once. I joined her, resting my arms on the railing. I loved who I thought she was, I said. That version died a long time ago. She nodded. Good. We stood there quietly. Do you regret coming back? She asked. I shook my head. No, I said. I regret staying away for the wrong reasons. A month later, the final hearing took place. I didn't attend. I didn't need to watch the collapse to believe it was real. Instead, Lena and I opened a bottle of wine at home. To endings, she said, raising her glass. To beginnings, I replied. And somewhere, far from chandeliers and old grudges, the weight I'd carried for a decade finally stopped following me into the future. The fallout didn't arrive all at once. It crept in through cracks, emails marked urgent, quiet phone calls that stopped the moment I answered, and headlines that softened their language but sharpened their implications. What had begun as a corporate restructuring became something else entirely, a public unraveling. Hale Dominion's name was no longer spoken with pride. It was spoken cautiously. Analysts dissected its past decisions, reporters traced its rise and decay, and former employees, people who had once been too afraid to speak, started coming forward with stories that sounded uncomfortably familiar. Pressure to lie. Numbers adjusted. Promotions granted in exchange for silence. I watched it all from a distance. Lena insisted on that distance. Not because she wanted to protect the company, but because she wanted to protect me. You already paid the emotional cost, she told me one evening as we sat in the living room, papers spread across the table. You don't need to relive it just to prove it happened. She was right. I didn't need validation anymore. The truth had stepped into the light on its own. But there were moments, quiet ones, when the past returned anyway. It happened late at night most often. I'd wake up with the memory of that guesthouse door opening 10 years ago. The way Evelyn wouldn't meet my eyes. The way Adrian stood just a little too close to her, already claiming space that wasn't his. The way my life split into before and after without warning. One night, after another restless hour, I got up and found Lena awake in the kitchen. You too? She asked softly. I nodded. She poured me a glass of water and leaned against the counter. You know, she said, most people never get answers. They just learn to live with the question marks. I know, I replied. That's why this feels strange. Like I'm grieving something that already died. She reached for my hand. That's because you are. The call from Evelyn came 2 days later. I almost didn't recognize the number. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. Jackson, she said, her voice quiet, worn down by something heavier than guilt. I don't know if you'll talk to me. I don't even know if I deserve it. I closed my eyes. I'm listening, I said. That was all. She told me she'd left Aurora Ridge weeks before the reunion. That she'd discovered accounts in her name she didn't recognize. Loans she never approved. Documents she never signed. I thought it was a mistake, she said. Then I realized it wasn't. She admitted Adrian had been controlling for years. Not violently. Not obviously. Just enough to make resistance feel pointless. He'd isolated her slowly, from friends, from advisors, from anyone who might question him. I should have told you the truth back then, she whispered. I should have asked you. Yes, I said evenly. You should have. Silence stretched between us. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I just didn't want you to think I was never ashamed. I don't think about you the way I used to, I said honestly. But I don't wish you harm. She exhaled shakily. That's more kindness than I earned. When the call ended, I didn't feel relief. I felt closure. The past didn't need more conversation. It needed boundaries. Adrian's downfall accelerated quickly after that. The investigation uncovered patterns that even I hadn't seen at first: money diverted from internal projects, false reporting to investors, and pressure placed on junior executives to falsify statements. The board removed him unanimously. Charges followed. He sent me a message from an unlisted number. Just one line. I never thought you'd actually come back. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My parents tried again a few weeks later. This time, not with demands or explanations, just an invitation to dinner. Neutral territory. Public restaurant. Carefully worded apology waiting to be served between courses. I declined. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. Some relationships don't end with explosions. They end with understanding that nothing healthy remains. Work shifted into a new rhythm after that. Arcturus expanded. Slowly. Deliberately. I stopped chasing growth for the sake of proving something. I hired people I trusted. I turned down clients who reminded me too much of the company I once escaped. Lena noticed the change before I did. You're not running anymore, she said one morning as we walked through the park. I think I finally stopped needing to, I replied. She smiled. Good. I married the man you became, not the one who was trying to outrun his past. That night, as the city settled into its quiet hum, I stood on the balcony again and looked out over the lights. 10 years ago, I'd left Aurora Ridge believing I'd lost everything. But standing there now, I understood something that would have sounded impossible back then. I hadn't lost my life. I'd been released from a lie that was never mine to carry. And for the first time since I was 20, the future didn't feel like something I had to fight for. It felt like something I was finally allowed to choose. The trial didn't end with a dramatic verdict read aloud in a crowded courtroom. It ended quietly, the way most real consequences do, through paperwork, sealed documents, and doors closing without ceremony. Adrian accepted a plea deal. Not because he suddenly grew honest, but because the evidence left him no room to perform. Years of manipulation collapsed into a timeline he couldn't rewrite. The sentence was shorter than public outrage demanded, longer than his confidence ever anticipated. His name disappeared from business headlines and resurfaced only in legal databases and whispered cautionary tales. I didn't attend the sentencing. I read the summary once, folded the paper, and let it go. Because the truth was, my life no longer revolved around what happened to him. The real ending had already taken place long before the law caught up. It happened the day I realized I didn't feel angry anymore. That realization came unexpectedly, during an ordinary moment. Lena and I were grocery shopping on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Nothing dramatic. No memories triggered. Just a passing thought as I reached for a carton of milk. 10 years ago, I would have given anything to trade places with my brother. Now, I wouldn't trade my life for his, not even for a second. That was the moment I knew I was free. My parents sent one last message months later. Not asking for reconciliation. Just acknowledging the harm they'd caused. It was imperfect. Incomplete. But honest in a way they'd never been before. I didn't reply immediately. When I did, it was short. I've built a life I'm proud of. I hope you do the same. That was all. Arcturus continued to grow, not explosively, but steadily. Clients came for clarity, not theatrics. For strategy, not ego. I became known for saying no as often as yes. For walking away from deals that smelled like shortcuts. Lena teased me about it sometimes. You've become selective, she said. I've become careful, I corrected. There's a difference. Our marriage settled into something solid. Not perfect. Not effortless. But real. We argued. We compromised. We listened. And when things got hard, we faced them together instead of trying to win. One evening, as we sat on the balcony watching the city darken, she asked me a question I hadn't expected. If you could go back, she said, would you stop it from happening? I knew what she meant. The betrayal. The humiliation. The decade of rebuilding. I thought about it carefully before answering. No, I said finally. She turned to me, surprised. Because if it hadn't happened, I continued, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be this person. And I wouldn't have learned how strong I actually was. She smiled softly and rested her head on my shoulder. Some wounds don't fade. They transform. They carve space for something stronger to grow. Aurora Ridge exists now only as a place on a map. A chapter closed. A lesson learned. When people ask about my family, I tell them the truth without bitterness and without drama. I built my own. And when I think back to that night, the black car, the silence, the moment everything shifted, I don't feel triumph. I feel peace. Because the greatest thing I reclaimed wasn't status or power or reputation. It was myself. And once you get that back, no one can ever take it from you again. If my story made you feel something, don't let it end here. Like the video, share it with someone who needs this reminder, and comment where you're watching from. Subscribe for more stories where truth finally speaks.